بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Our lecture today is about word forms. That is talking about nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Let's say the functions or the purposes of this lecture is here we have to understand word functions, okay, word forms as well, to distinguish between nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs for accurate word usage and sentence construction. Also, to identify and use part of a speech, to recognize and correctly use nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs in writing and speaking to convey meaning. Another, let's say, objective is to enhance language skills in order to improve vocabulary, sentence structure, and communication effectiveness by mastering word forms, which are, of course, noun, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Applying also grammar rules, which is here, of course, to use knowledge of word forms to apply grammar rules related to plural, verb tenses, adjectives, and adverbs. That is here discussing, let's say, functional grammar, let's say, or functional words. Also, to improve writing and speaking, to express, of course, ideas clearly and accurately in various forms of writing and everyday conversations through understanding word forms. These are the main objectives or goals of our lecture today. The key terms that we are going to discuss as well, mainly, since we talk about word forms, we talk about nouns, which refer to names of persons, places, things, or ideas. For example, you can say book, teacher, city, let's say, or students, for example. Verbs, of course, which express, let's say, an action or state of being, state of affairs, we can say sometimes. So, expressions of actions or states of beings. Like run, think, let's say play, like be or is, am, are, was, etc. These are all verbs. Of course, they are of different forms as well. Adjectives, of course, that these adjectives or words are related to nouns. So these describe. I'm talking about adjective words. They describe or modify a noun or nouns. We can say adjectives like tall, happy, delicious. We can say beautiful, amazing, interesting. Adverbs. The fourth form is adverbs. Adverb, of course, modifies a verb or adjective, adjectives or adverb itself to indicate how, when, where, or to what extent that word is. So adverb, as we said, adjective describe nouns. Adverbs they describe they describe verbs or adjectives or adverb itself. Okay, for example, we can say quickly, we can say very, often, fast, all these are adverbs. In addition, we'll talk about also, I'm talking about words or terms that are going to be used. Tense. The tense also is another aspect that we'll discuss here. We talk about different types of tenses, that is past and present tense. So if we talk about past tense, it indicates an action that occurred and happened in the past, like walked, played, cleaned, traveled. Present tense as well, another also aspect, indicates an action that happenings now or regularly. Okay, that is regularly past, present, and future. Another aspect we also going to discuss here, number. That is, when we talk about number, we talk about plural form and singular form, which is important in English grammar. So when we talk about plural, this indicates more than one. Okay, for example, we can say cats, books, tables, chairs, people. Okay, singular, that is singular nouns like which indicates only one thing or one person. Okay, like cat, like man, like table, like car. Okay, Another also aspect related to mainly here adjectives or adverbs, which is comparison. This term is used, of course, as comparative, compares two things or two people, like faster or more beautiful or others. Superlative also compares three or more things or more to three or more people. That is one of all, let's say. Okay, we use, of course, est. We'll discuss this in details, inshallah. Now, regular and irregular forms, we have that is related to nouns. We know now that is sometimes either now, and when we talk about nouns, irregular plural, let's say, nouns, and also regular or irregular verbs. So they are related to nouns and verbs when we talk about irregular, in addition, of course, to adjectives and adverbs as well. So when you talk about regular and irregular, regular follows, typical patterns, that is adding ed sometimes, or we add er, we add sometimes, s, sometimes for plural form, etc. Okay, irregular, does not follow typical patterns. Like, when we talk about, let's say, verbs, we talk مثلا go, went, gone, different. Okay, they are not ed. When we talk about, nouns, we talk about child, children, man, men, for example. These are irregular plural nouns. And of course, for adjectives, we talk about مثلا good, better, best. That's in comparison. Now, in order to start here, okay, generally, when we talk about word forms in English, and here we are going to explore the different types of words and their function, including nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Of course, and understanding word forms is essential for building strong language skills and effective communication, because we need to know the forms of the word itself, if it is a noun or a verb or an adjective or an adverb, in English language, so that we can build, better English usage, let's say, or communication. The objective of this lesson here are, of course, here we have different objectives. We can, of course, that help you to identify and differentiate between nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, to learn how these words function within sentences to convey meanings, and to apply, let's say, grammar rules related to word forms such as plural, verb tense, and comparative or superlative forms. Also, to enhance your writing and speaking skills by using word forms accurately and effectively. Throughout the lesson, we'll engage in various activities, for example, or as examples, of course, and exercises to reinforce your understanding of word forms. And at the end of the lesson, you will have a solid grasp of how different types of words work in sentences and how to use them correctly in your own writing and conversations. So let's now start our lesson. Okay. And of course, here, let's say this introduction sets the stage for the lesson, outlining the objectives and goals for learning about word forms, while emphasizing the practical applications of this knowledge in writing and speaking. Of course, it creates a clear roadmap for the lesson and prepare you as students, of course, my students, for the activities and learning experiences ahead. The main topics, okay, or themes of this lecture, the first one is understanding word classes, sorry. Word classes, of course, here we talk about parts of speech, let's say, parts of speech. And when we talk about parts of speech, we talk about the main, word forms in English language, which are, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. So one of the primary themes in learning word forms is understanding the different word classes or parts of speech. These include nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, each serving distinct functions in sentences. So let's start with nouns. Nouns are words that name people, places, things, or ideas. For example, we can say, book, teacher, city, happiness, beauty, love. Okay. Understanding nouns helps to identify subjects, objects, and the main focus of sentences. Okay, so this will help us understand the nouns. Okay, identifying the nouns which function as subjects or objects, of course, to understand the main focus of the sentence. While verbs express actions. Okay, the verb express actions, physical or mental actions. Okay, or states of being. For example, we can say verbs like run, like think, like verb to be, let's say is, am, are, was, etc. Like become. Okay, verbs are crucial for conveying actions, events, or conditions in sentences as well. They are important. And generally, the nouns and verbs are the main component of the sentence, because we know the noun is used as the subject, and of course we have the subject must be followed by the verb. So these are the main component or constituents of the sentence. That is the noun phrase and verb phrase. Noun phrase that consists a noun, and verb phrase that must consist what? A verb. Okay, at least one verb and its complements, of course. Adjectives, of course, here the third type or part or form. Adjectives describe or modify nouns. These words describe nouns or modify nouns. This is why they are called modifiers. Okay, they modify what? The nouns. And of course, they must come before nouns, they precede the nouns. So, modify nouns or pronouns sometimes, yes, providing more information about them. Yes, this describes that state, or give more information about the nouns. For example, of course, adjectives like tall, happy, delicious, interesting, and wonderful, let's say, amazing. So they enhance description and add detail to sentences. Adverbs as well. Of course, these words modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs as well. So they modify the verbs themselves, okay, or they modify as well the adjectives or the adverbs themselves, and mainly they end with, this is the regular form of adverbs, they end with ly. Okay, they are words ending with ly. That is adjective plus ly. This gives us what? An adverb word. So for example here, quickly, okay, let's say slowly, beautifully, interestingly, very often. Okay, these are what, or sometimes we can have other adverbs, like adverbs of places, adverbs of time, like here, like morning, etc. Adverbs enrich sentences by providing additional information about actions or qualities. Actions that are verbs, qualities like, adjectives and adverbs. Understanding word classes now in general helps in constructing grammatically correct sentences and conveying precise meanings. Now, to understand, these ideas better, or these, let's say, forms of words better, let's have more, information about them. As we said, nouns are words that name people, places, etc. Okay. Now, they serve as the building blocks of sentences, functioning as subjects, objects, or complements, as I told you. Now, when you talk about they serve the building blocks of of sentence or of sentences, I told you that any sentence must consist of two main components, without which it is ungrammatical, it is not correct. So that is the subject and the verb. The subject must be a noun or a pronoun. Okay, must be a noun or a pronoun. So here in this case, this is why we said the building blocks, without which, okay, there's no structure, there's no grammatical sentence. So it is, of course, why? Because as we said here, the function of the noun as subject, that is the doer of the action, and as object, which undergoes the action, that is to say. So two different functions for these, what, for the same, I mean, noun phrase or the noun itself. So the subject and object. Subject that comes before the verb, that's, does the action itself, and the object that comes or that follows the verb, okay, and it is also, in this case, functions as object. A noun functioning as object. Or complements. Complements we'll deal with, that is other types of sentences preceded by linking verb like be, copulative case. In copulative case, we can say مثلا you are students, okay, I am a doctor. So in this case, students, a doctor are not, let's say, objects, they are complements of the verb phrase. Examples now, person, we can say these nouns are divided into different aspects, like person, مثلا, like teacher, friend, John, okay, place, like school, city, park, things, we can say book, table, car, idea, love, freedom, happiness, many other also types. Functions in sentences now. The functions, of course, of nouns in sentences, as I said earlier, we have, let's say, subject. For example, we can say the teacher teaches English. Okay, the teacher teaches. So we have the teacher is the subject and consists of what? Noun phrase, the teacher. And this noun phrase includes or has the word teacher as a noun preceded by the determiner the or the article the. Also functions, the nouns function as what? Objects, as I said. For example, she loves her job. She loves her job. Her job is a noun phrase consisting of the possessive pronoun, which is a determiner as well here, with a noun job. So job here is also functions. It's a noun functioning as object. Complement, as I told you, for example, he is a doctor. A doctor here is a noun, but it is not what object because it comes after verb to be. And verb to be here is the main verb. In this case, we consider the nouns that come after verb to be as complement of the verb, complements of the verb, and they function as predicate, which is not our concern here as well. Now, regarding verbs, verbs express actions or states or occurrences in sentences, that's say. They show what the subject of the sentence is doing or being. Okay. Now, for example, we can say they are different types, of course. We can say action verbs, that verbs express actions like run, eat, write, come, go, okay, play, etc. So state verbs, stative verbs we can say as well, like مثلا be, have, like, okay, hate, sometimes love. Verbs of feelings we can say as well. Occurrence verbs like happen, occur, exist, okay. These okay also occurrence verbs. So now functioning or functions in sentences here, we can say verbs generally functions as predicate, okay, or predicative functions. It is of course not our concern here because here we deal with just the grammar. I'm talking about word forms, not that is to say semantics or other, I'm talking about functions of the words or nouns. Action, for example, she runs every morning. State, for example, we can have here, he is happy. Occurrence, the event happened yesterday or occurred yesterday. The event happened yesterday. Now, with regard to adjectives, adjectives are words that modify or describe nouns and pronouns, providing more information about their qualities or characteristics. For example, descriptive adjectives like tall, beautiful, intelligent. We can say, مثلا, Ahmed is a tall young man. So a tall young man. So I said tall and young man. So tall, young, let's say describe Ahmed as, a tall and young man or young man. Beautiful, intelligent, of course. We can say beautiful is another adjective, intelligent. And, adjectives are, of course, full in English language. There are very many. And there are, of course, different types in structure and even in forms, okay? In structures, forms, and, of course, many other types. So, descriptive adjectives, as we said, tall and beautiful, intelligent. Quantitative, let's say, adjectives like five, many, few, let's say, little, etc. These, relate to quantity. Possessive adjectives, we know possessive adjectives like my, you, their, these are possessive pronouns, okay? Possessive pronouns as adjective that is, related to now. Of course, these must not be used or alone because they cannot stand alone. They always precede nouns, okay? Of course, to modify that noun. Functions in sentences. Now, descriptive, we can say the tall building. Look at this, the tall building. The tall building. Building is a noun and tall is an adjective. Quantitative, we can say many students, few students, a little sugar, let's say, okay, little information. Possessive, we can say his book, my book, your books, for example. This is related to what? Adjectives. And of course, adjective also is divided into different types according to comparison, let's say, or in comparison process. Adverbs, we'll discuss this inshallah in more details, in this class. Adverbs also are words that modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs to indicate how, when, where, or to what extent something happens. For example, here, adverbs of manner. Of course, we have different types of adverbs: adverbs of manner, adverb of time, adverbs of place, adverb of, let's say, condition, adverbs of degree, etc. There are many, okay? Adverbs of opinion. So, adverbs of manner like quickly, slowly, well, okay? That answered the question how. Adverbs of time, now, later, yesterday. Adverbs of time related to tenses, let's say, of the language. Adverbs of place like here, there, nearby, upstairs, downstairs, forward, etc. Adverbs of degree, very quickly, very quiet, extremely. Now, these are types of adverbs, as you know. Functions in sentences, like, for example, I'm talking about examples, let's say. Manner, she sings beautifully, let's say. She sings beautifully. Time, they arrived early. Early is an adverb. Place, he lives nearby. He lives nearby, okay? Degree, also we can say it's very hot. It's very hot. We have hot, very hot, okay? Or we can say it's extremely difficult. The exam is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Now, understanding these word classes, okay, helps in constructing grammatically correct sentences, forming meaningful phrases, and conveying precise meanings. It also lays a foundation or the foundation for more advancement grammatical concepts and language skills. Now, the second topic now we are dealing with is word formation and inflection. Now, regarding this is really a very important point when we discuss word forms. Word forms are divided into two. We can say content and function, let's say. Word content, that words had the meaning they were according to word forms like noun, adjective, verb, and adverb, okay? But when you talk about inflection, here we have a different aspect of discussing word forms. This is related to grammatical words. Okay, so when we talk about nouns, we talk about plural noun, singular noun. When we talk about verbs, we talk about, let's say, verb forms, base form, ed form, ing form, s form. Okay, and when you talk about adjectives, we have, we have that is equity, that is okay, equity adjective, okay, like for example big, and we have this comparative form, okay, which is bigger, and superlative form, which is biggest or the biggest. So this is related to inflection and word form. Let's see more about this. Another theme in learning word forms is understanding how words are formed and inflected to express different meanings, tenses, or comparisons. Plural, of course, when we talk about plural, we talk about nouns here because we have plural nouns, okay, like, of course, and singular nouns. So plural nouns often change form to indicate more than one. That's plural. For example, cat becomes cats, and book becomes books. So in generally, and this is general rule, to to, let's say, form a plural noun from a singular noun, we add S. We add S sound, okay, that is us. Sometimes, of course, in spelling, we add ES, okay? This is to differentiate plural form from singular form, okay? Although here now you need to know something, that we have also irregular plural nouns like man, men, child, children. We can say ox, oxen, foot, let's say, or foot, feet, okay? Wife, wives, okay? These are irregular plural nouns, okay? That you should, take care of, let's say, or let's say you should understand also better. So understanding plural forms is essential for noun agreement in sentence. Why it's important to understand the plural form or to distinguish the plural form from singular form? Because, you know, the agreement of the subject with the verb or the verb with the subject, it depends on this. That is, since we have plural forms of nouns, singular nouns, plural noun, this means we have also what? Singular verb, plural verb. So we have, for example, is, are. We have, let's say, have, has. We have, let's say, do, does. Or we have was, were. All these, or we have sometimes base form or S form in the simple present tense. All these tenses are based, or verbs are based on the subject, if it is plural or singular. This is why we need to understand what that is. If the noun, the subject, of course, noun is, if it is plural or singular. Now, verb tenses, of course, verbs change form to indicate different tenses. As I told you, verb forms are four mainly, more four, such as past, present, and future. Okay, this is about verb tenses, but I'm talking about verb forms. We have four verb forms. We have the base form, we have the S form in the simple present when the subject is singular, and we have the ED form in the past simple and past participle. And also we have what? The ing form, that is present participle. These are the verb forms in English language. But when talking about tenses, we have, of course, mainly three tenses, that is present, past, and future. For instance, walk, changes to walked for past tense. And of course, will walk for future tense. But walk itself is a present. A proper, of course, use of verb tenses ensures clear and accurate communication of time-related actions. As I said about these verbs, so it's important to know them and to know the rules of, verb forms through what learning what the tense of or tenses of the verb. Okay, verb tenses, which of course related to the verbs. Verbs also are of two forms: main verbs, okay, which let's say focuses on the meaning of the word, the verb, and also we have auxiliaries, okay, auxiliaries or auxiliary verbs, or sometimes called as helping verbs. These verbs, they focus on what? Time, okay, that is, if the sentence is present, present continuous, present perfect, okay, present perfect continuous, or future perfect, or future continuous, or past continuous, or past simple, past, so on and so forth. These are, can be, let's say, understood and let's say used in tenses. So differentiating, that is to say, the main verbs from the auxiliaries. Main verbs depend on the auxiliary. If we have verb to be, we have ing form in the active voice. If we have verb to have, has, had, must be followed by past participle of the tense, of the verb tense. If we have modals, for example, or verb to do, in this case, we have base form of the verb. So these are, what we mean by verb forms and tenses as well. Comparative and superlative forms, and these are related to adjectives in addition to adverbs as well. So adjectives and adverbs change form to compare different degrees of qualities or actions. For example, we can say tall becomes taller, big, bigger, fast, fast. This is faster, I mean, sorry, as a comparative form. Okay, now in comparative form, and let's say this is in comparative form, that is, we add er to the word to change the form of the word. Now we add est in superlative form. For example, tall, tallest, okay, big, biggest, fast, fastest, let's say. Understanding comparative and superlative forms helps in making comparisons and describing relationships between things or actions. So, mastering word formation and inflection enhances vocabulary usage, sentence structure, and overall language proficiency. Now, to have more information about also nouns, let's say, we can say, for example, plural information related to here mainly how to form plural, that is to say. Now, plural formation here refers to how nouns change their form to indicate more than one. And we discussed this, if you remember, earlier in many examples, like English nouns typically form plurals by adding s or es. The singular form we can say, like cat, cats, cat is singular, cats, is a plural. We can say singular, for example, box, we can say boxes, child, we can say it's irregular plural form, it is children, okay, as the examples I mentioned earlier. Now, understanding plural formation is crucial for noun agreement in sentences and, of course, for conveying quantity or plurality. Sometimes it's important to know because sometimes we have determiners that precede what the nouns. They must agree with the number. Okay, if I said this, we can say this car different from these cars, this student, these students, this boy, these boys, okay, or that as well. So this and that agree with singular noun, and that, those, these agree with what the plural nouns, okay. In addition, of course, to verb tenses as well, here verbs change their forms to indicate different tenses, such as past, present, and future. Okay, regular verbs, of course, often we add ed for past tense and ing for present, participle. I told you about them earlier. While irregular verbs, of course, have unique forms for each tense. We know about irregular verbs like go or ate, or the past of eat, ate. Go, we have went. We can say drive, drove, know, knew, etc. So, for example, here past tense we can say walk, walked, ed. Now for irregular form we can have, or verbs, we can have eat, ate, go, went, etc. Present, we can have base form of the verb. Of course, we have walk, eat, go, drink, etc. Future, we can say, also followed by base form. We can say will walk, okay, will eat, will go, will drink. But also we have with S form, which is, as I told you, we can say goes, eats, walks. Mastering verb tenses allows for accurate communication for time-related actions and events as well. And of course, we discussed this in previous lessons. Okay, talking about tenses, for example, let's say past, present tense, past and past continuous, present and present continuous, perfect tenses as well. Okay, which are related to verb forms. Okay. Now, the comparative and superlative forms, like here, they are, of course, here related to adjectives and adverbs, okay? Adjectives and adverbs. That's the change of the word form here occurs in the adjectives, okay, with, of course, one syllable or sometimes two syllables words, okay? Adjectives and verbs change their form to compare different degrees of qualities or actions. Comparative forms, of course, compare two things, between two things, while superlative forms compare three or more things. That is one out of all. Examples, we can say adjectives, positive, we can say tall. Comparative, positive here, of course, we mean, or I meant by, that is the equity. That is, I use the same word without any addition, without any, the base form, let's say, of the adjective or the adverb. So we can say tall. Now the comparative form is taller, and superlative we can say tallest. Happy, for example, we can say happier and happiest. Regarding adverbs, we can say, for example, we can, irregular form, we can say fast, we can say faster, or fastest, okay? And we can say, let's say, pretty, prettier, or prettiest, or we can say, well, for example, well is the adverb of good, okay? So we can say better, and superlative form is best. So understanding also comparative and superlative forms aids or helps, let's say, make a comparison and describe, let's say, relationships between qualities or actions. Now, another point which is here, word inflection regarding adjective and adverbs. That is related to the grammatical point here, which is, adding er or est. Adjectives and adverbs may undergo inflection to indicate degrees of comparison, such as adding er or est for comparative and superlative forms. For example, for adjectives, we can say, strong, for example. This is the positive, and comparative, we can say stronger, and the superlative, we can say strongest. Positive for old, let's say older, and oldest as superlative. For adverbs, you can say, let's say positive, we can say loudly, but we can say more loudly. In this case, we add more before the adverb, and most loudly for the superlative. Also, we can say quickly, okay? We can say more quickly, and we can say also for comparative, for superlative, we can say most quickly. So, mastering word formation and inflection enhances vocabulary usage, sentence structure, and overall language proficiency. And that's for the, let's say, the second topic. Now, the third topic, we'll deal with grammar rules and conventions. Now, learning word forms also involves understanding and applying grammar rules and conventions related to word usage, placement, and agreement. As I told you earlier, I mentioned little information about this, that the agreement of the subject with the verb, okay? So subject-verb agreement. Now, verbs must agree with their subjects in number, singular or plural, as I told you earlier. For example, you can say the cat eats, or the cat is eating, or the cat has eaten. See now different tenses, but we have the cat, we have is. But if I said the cats, we can say eat, or the cat are eating, or the cats, the cats, plural form, are eating, or the cats have eaten. So look at this. Now, depends on what? On the subject, if it is singular or plural. Okay, so if I say the cat eats, that's singular subject in simple present tense. For continuous tense, the cat is eating. Okay, now different from if I said the cats eat. Okay, for plural subject. In plural, present continuous, you can say the cats are eating, for example. Okay, so this is the agreement of the subject with the verb. Plural formation as well. Now here, it's different from when we talk about the how to form the plural, of nouns. Nouns may form plurals by adding s or es. This is the regular rule, okay? Now, or sometimes we have irregular endings, like for example, child, we have children or become children. Ox, oxen. We can say مثلا foot, feet. We can say, let's say louse, lice, for example, okay? Many other examples related to life, lives, let's say, okay. Different rules of, let's say, plural formation. Understanding plural formation ensures correct noun usage in sentences as well. Now, comparative and superlative rules here, related to rules as well. We need to know here the rules of forming comparison, okay, forms, that's comparative and superlative. When we add, let's say, er, or let's say sometimes more instead of er, or sometimes est, or the most. So adjectives and adverbs follow specific rules for forming comparative and superlative forms, such as adding er or est or using more and most, as I told you. Mastery of these rules leads to accurate and nuanced descriptions. Now, another also aspect or point we need to know, the adjective noun order. Now, we know that is here, we talk about nouns preceded by adjectives. This is the main order or the real order, the real rule, let's say, of forming the, let's say, noun phrase. If we have a noun phrase that is a noun preceded by elements like adjectives or determiners, these determiners or modifiers like adjectives must come before the noun. So it's called adjective noun order. Adjectives generally typically precede nouns. They modify, of course, in English, of course, what nouns. So we can say red car, big house. We can say, let's say pretty girl. Okay. Adherence to adjective noun order enhances sentence clarity and readability. Of course, here we need to be careful sometimes not to translate literally, because in English language, always adjective must come before the noun, that it must precede the noun. By learning and applying grammar rules and conventions related to word forms, students develop precise and effective communication skills in English. Now, also another point that is, as we discussed earlier, this subject-verb agreement. We talked about this, okay, and now also we talked about plural formation, regular plural forms. That is here, generally we add s or es, but we have irregular plural nouns like the examples that we mentioned earlier. Okay, this is called irregular plural nouns. Okay, of course, in addition to that, we can say comparative, now short adjective, positive, etc. Now, regarding comparison in English language, here we have to differentiate, by the way. It depends on what? Look at this. It depends on the word itself, how many syllables the word consists of. If the word is one syllable, and sometimes two syllables, we add er or est in the superlative form, er in the comparative form, est for. So for example, we said that tall, taller, big, bigger, small, smaller, or smallest or tallest, for superlative. So, but this, if the word is short or one syllable, let's say one syllable, or sometimes two syllables, like for example two syllables like easy. We have easy, two syllables, so we can say easier or the easiest. For example, we can say busy, busier, busiest. We can have, for example, clever, cleverer, or cleverest. Okay, so these are two word, let's say, syllables, two syllables word. In this case, we have what? Er. These are irregular forms, of course. So either one that is short word or short adjective or short adverb, adverb. For example, we can have, you know, um, quickly. We can say it's two syllables here, quickly, but it is here with more. Okay, not ier. Okay, but we have, let's say, lovely, for example, lovelier. Okay, lovelier. Lovely is adjective, it's not adverb, by the way. Although it ends with what? Ly, but it's an adjective. Okay, so there are words with ly, they are adjectives, and in this case we add, like friendly, friendlier. Okay, or more friendly, sometimes use both. These are irregular forms of comparative or and superlative forms in English language. Now, with for long, let's say, words, like, that words consist of two, sometimes, or three or more syllables, like beautiful, interesting, مثلا, difficult, three syllables or long words, we use, of course, we don't use er, we use just more before the adjective. So we can say more beautiful, more difficult, the most beautiful, the most difficult. Okay, so on and so forth. So it depends on what, the let's say, the word. If it is long, two sometimes, or mainly three syllables and more, or if it is one syllable, we have, to add er or est. That's all. We have also other things that we need to discuss, talking about the order of the adjectives sometimes, okay? The order of the adjectives itself, okay? Adjective noun order here. Adjectives typically precede the nouns they modify in English. We said that. But sometimes, even if you have more than one adjective before the noun, here we have a certain order, by the way, to follow. Okay? So, following a specific order, for example, we start with opinion, then size, then age, then shape, color, origin, material, and purpose. Of course, if any of these, let's say, aspects expressed by an adjective, they must follow this order. For example, we can say she has a beautiful red, okay, car. Beautiful, that's opinion. Then the color, اللي هو car, okay. So, and we have many other examples. You can, of course, look for more, okay. Adhering to the correct adjective noun order enhances sentence clarity and structure as well, okay. Modal verbs is one type of the verbs. As I told you earlier, we have been talking about verbs. We have different types. We have main verbs. We have auxiliary verbs. Modals are one of the auxiliary verbs. Okay, one of the auxiliary verbs. These include, of course, I'm talking about modal verbs. Include, will, would, shall, should, can, could, may, might, must, had to. Of course, we have had better. Let's say, or had better, ought to. Okay, need to as well. All these, of course, have to, be going to. All these are called modal verbs. Okay, and they have, okay, one rule that they must be followed by base, but they are different functions. They are of different functions. Let's say functions. I'm talking about will. Let's say if, shall. They express what future actions. Let's say. But when you talk about should, express what advice. When we ask about, let's say, would, sometimes with different functions, has different functions. Sometimes for conditions, imaginary situations, okay, or sometimes for asking for information or request, let's say. When we talk about can, could, we talk about ability. When we talk about may, might, we talk about probability. When we talk about must, had to, or let's say have to. Okay, these of course function as obligatory. That is must be, or as we said here, necessity, permission, ability in sentence. They follow specific rules and can affect, of course, verb usage. We have many examples on that. We can say he can play the piano. This means the ability to play the piano. Or we can say people must follow or must apply the law or the rules. Must here related to rules as a necessity. We can say, مثلا, we can say you might have problems if you go against the law. So you might. This indicates possibility. We will go home early tonight, so this also indicates future, so on and so forth. So pronoun antecedent agreement. Now, related to pronouns, pronouns are words that refer to nouns. Generally, they are pronouns called because they are words that refer to nouns. Okay, so we have 7 mainly pronouns. Okay, with different types. Subject pronouns like I, we, you, the, they, he, she, it. Okay, and of course we have that's as subjects pronouns. We have object pronouns like me, him, her, it, us, you, and of course there. So pronouns must agree with their antecedent. Of course, the antecedent, that is the noun they are referred to, okay? In gender, number, and person to avoid ambiguity and ensure clarity in sentences. Of course, when we talk about he, she, the he, we know that refers to, for, gender, that is male, and she for female, it for, neutral, we can say neutral. I, of course, for the speaker. We refers to the speaker and someone, okay, else that is, okay, related. So we. They refers as third person plural, refers to people, the plural form of he, she, and it. And for example, of course, here let about these pronoun antecedent. Okay, the student said Look at the student said he was ready for the exam. So he here refers to the student. We can say we can say as well the student said she was ready, because we know the student is a word that refers to male or female. So we can say he or she. Okay. Proper pronouns antecedent agreement maintains coherence and cohesion in writing. By grasping and applying these grammar rules and conventions, students can construct grammatically correct sentences, use words appropriately, and convey their ideas effectively in written and spoken English. That's it, about the lecture. But to sum up this lesson, you know, as we have seen, we explored the intricacies of word forms in English, focusing on several key themes like understanding word classes, part of speech, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Okay, as fundamental parts of speech. Okay, and we discussed with more examples, of course, with examples on each of these forms. We discussed also what, let's say, the functions of these words or word formation and inflection. That is the function here. Uh, grammatical, grammatically, let's say, discussed. Nouns form plurals, that is plural nouns, singular nouns, verbs, forms like, base form, ed form, ing form, s form sometimes, in addition to adjectives and adverbs, related to comparison, which is here we add, of course, rules like er or est. Okay, this is all these called inflection. When we talk about derivation, okay, we talk about the nouns, the verbs, the adjective, and the adverbs. Okay, that's how we derive, let's say, nouns from verbs, or verbs from nouns, or from adjectives, or from adverbs, so on and so forth. Okay, as we have seen, that is, I didn't focus a lot on derivation, just I mentioned something about word forms. Okay, we'll come to another lesson, specifically to talk about derivation, in specific, that is, or in particular. Convention, as here we have, let's say, grammatical rules and conventions, subject verb agreement. We discussed that as well. Okay, the agreement of the subject with the verb as well, in which is important in that is sentences, and of course, and indicates or must, let's say, identify the subject if it's singular. I mean the noun, of course, if it's singular and or plural, because the verb depends on that. That's all. Okay, by mastering these themes, students can construct grammatically correct sentences, in addition to convey precise meanings, enhance their language proficiency in both written and spoken English. That's it for today. Thank you. Have a nice time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.